Lifeability family, I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Tracey Gillis-Sinclair. Tracey is a somatic therapist, neurofeedback practitioner, and a space holder. Tracey's offerings include one-on-one sessions in holistic pelvic care, somatic and sacral therapy, kinesiology, as well as group sessions tailored for couples, women, and those looking to deepen their relationship with self. Tracey's vision is to support you in making changes that resonate deeply, allowing for a life lived in harmony with your own inner rhythms and truths. In today's episode, we discuss sensual and sexual health for women. I hope you enjoy today's recording as much as I did. Welcome, Tracey, to the Lifeability podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation about women's sexuality, sensuality, and yoni. It's been on my mind for a little while, and so I'm really excited to finally do this. I'd love to start off with maybe you talking through about your journey into this space.
Yeah, thank you, Shraddha. So lovely to be here. So my journey into this space, I guess, come from a place of freeze. I was stuck in a pattern where society has an expectation when you're married to, be in flow. And I really found myself frozen at moments of intimacy. And I've been with my husband for over 20 years. And I was really curious about that. And I'd done a lot of talk therapy around childhood experiences, and they were wonderful to an extent to process the emotions that were sitting there, but I hadn't really gone into what my body was holding. So I met that resistance, and I really wanted to. I guess for me, I had thought, okay, well, maybe someone that's had this experience, this is how it is. And sort of had, put myself into a box, so to speak, of how it was going to be for me. And then, the fire in my belly went, hang on, no, maybe there's something else. So let's let's see what body has to say. And that's how my journey began. I went and had a session with a beautiful practitioner, and we really looked at how I show up in intimacy and what parts of my body come online. And I really discovered and was able to be with my body's, I guess, posture and my body's reaction and the subtleties of a freeze. Rather than just calling it a freeze, I experienced it in real time. And that really was the catalyst for me wanting to pursue this work, because I knew, I wasn't alone. I work with women a lot, and the conversations I was having, I knew that I wasn't alone. So that's where I began.
And so when you say you went and saw someone who, I guess, guided you through that process, more of a felt sense process where you were actually tapping into the womb area and seeing what was going on there?
Yeah, the process for me was, one thing about me is I tend to just follow my intuition and my guidance. So I was guided to this practitioner, and she's like, yes, it will be a 5-hour session, and it will, you'll come down. And I was like, okay, wonderful. So I went down not knowing. I knew that I was wanting to work on this block around intimacy that was there. And I was about to say, I don't really like the word block, but that's what's come here. But yeah, and what we did was really brought my body along. So there was a lot of touch, a lot of different textures, a lot of different pressures, a lot of different speeds of touch. And I was invited to, use my voice in response to the stimulus that was coming into my skin, my body. And it was really confronting because there was not so much work around the internal yoni. There was more work on the external and the body, my body. My torso, my arms, my legs, and then external yoni towards the end of the session at my pacing, my invitation, my ask, my yes rather to her ask. So yeah, it was, I really, in that moment, I drove away from that session. It took, a while to integrate and all of the pieces to drop in. I don't know whether we ever get somewhere. So yes, that's integrated, done. I'm healed, never have to go there again. It's a continuum, right? So what I found that day, what I discovered that day upon reflection and even the moments after is I learnt my voice in response to my body. I understood what I needed in a moment, not this idea of, oh yes, I'm a woman who understands what she needs now, but in the moment where I met my husband in intimacy, I was able to say, hey, can you do more of that? Or can you stop that, please? And I get emotional just saying that because it was it seems like a really simple thing. But for many of us, me included, particularly women who have, or gender fluid people, men, any soul that has experienced trauma, what happens is we disconnect from our sensory experience. And so this was an invitation back to my sensory experience moment to moment. Yeah.
And it's interesting how you say that, we get disconnected from that sensory experience, because I often find, especially the modern day that we live in, and, being constantly on the go, and then finally slowing down to feel into that, it takes a bit of an adjustment.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important piece. We are so busy. We have so many things to digest in social media, in, all of the aspects of life, all the hats we wear. And the slowing down is tricky, because dependent on our family of origin and the society that we live in, there's expectations of productivity and success that lies outside of the body. And yeah, what I know from my personal experience is we need to get really quiet to hear the body. In moment to moment, we need to get quiet. The body ignored for long enough will start to scream at us with symptoms. So it's really understanding our, those micro movements, those gestures that come on when we think about, or we are in a moment of intimacy or conflict or whatever it is, that we can respond to body and make our decisions from sensory information, not just what the mind thinks.
And so that leads me to asking you, when we are in that moment, and there are 10,000 things that are going on in our mind, what are ways to switch that off and be in the central, because oftentimes, I know for myself, I'll give you an example that I've found myself going back and forth with, feeling really, really connected in the moment and really central. And then, a thought comes and it disconnects that whole energy system, especially when, there are other external factors that are going on around, whether that's to do with the partner, whether that's just to do with life in general, right? Because to remain in that sensual energy is important to actually feel the full vibrance of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to speak to that, Shraddha. So I feel that yes, we have 10,000 things going on, and we're attempting to be somewhere, right? That central energy. I think that can be part of our problem. We want to be somewhere we're not, or we think that something else is better than what's here right now. So when the mind comes, we go, huh, hello, mind. What happens in my body when you turn up? Oh, I notice a disconnection. That right there is intelligence. Like that right there is you capturing that moment, capturing what happens in my body when my mind comes on. We don't want to get rid of the mind because it has such a beautiful purpose here, and it is part of the body, part of our wholeness. And I think, in my experience, seeing and accepting where I am, even those moments where I might be intimate with my husband and that freeze comes. I'm not trying to go, oh no, what are the tools I need to get out of this freeze? It's like, smart body, there's something here. What do I need? How can I resource myself in this very moment, right here, right now? And it might be just a simple breath. Yeah, rather than going, oh, want to get rid of this freeze, which is, I understand there can be a goal in that, or a goal of coming back to this energy. However, we can't get there by bypassing what is currently present. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is awareness and acceptance of that.
Absolutely. 100%. Because otherwise we're just bypassing something we're stepping over something that is here, that is present, that is alive in our bodies because we want something else. It's like, hey, how about we pull that closer? How about we pull the mind closer in that moment, pull the disconnection closer, and maybe, just maybe, or not, there might be some wisdom there for us that will inform our next decision. Yeah.
You mentioned something about the voice previously, connecting the voice to the touch of the body. And I'd love to explore that a little bit more because oftentimes to remain in the body and then to express what you're feeling can sometimes be like a forced action as opposed to just being in the moment and feeling. But I understand the voice is useful because it's a communication tool, and it's allowing your partner to be aware of what's actually feeling good and what's not feeling good. So yeah, I'd love you to speak into that a little bit more.
Yeah. And, I feel that this voice of ours is yes, it is a communication tool. And we, if we haven't used it to support our own expression in this world or how we show up in the world, it's going to be tricky, right? It's not impossible at all, but it takes courage to allow the voice to speak, because what if I offend somebody if I share that, oh no, I don't want to go out tonight, or I want to stop this moment of intimacy, or I want to withdraw my acceptance of a contract, or whatever it is. I feel that this is where it comes back to being present with the moment, where the mind's come in, I feel disconnected from that energy. We give ourselves a moment to pause and to be with that. Urgency can come from survival. It's a survival response, that flight response. So if we can come back and just be present with body and, mind, here you are. I've noticed disconnection. Then we can use that information right there to inform what we express, how we express it. It might be a movement, it might be a breath, it might be journaling, it might be spoken word, but there's an honoring of what is. And I don't know about you or anybody else in the world, but what I will say is, speaking from my experience, speaking my truth doesn't mean it comes out all articulate and beautiful and calm. It often at the beginning was like, can I just share something with you? Can we just stop? Can you just stop doing what you're doing? And it was so like a rush of energy through my body. But what came after that, because of that action that was a response to my body, came this expression that was true for me. Didn't matter what it looked like. It was truth. It was my truth that came out in that moment. So I think it can be multi-layered, this idea of voice and how we express ourselves in the world, because there can be this idea of, yes, okay, I now know how to express myself and I will in every single moment. But every single moment is different and will produce a different reaction, responsive, a reactive response rather in our body. And we just move from that place. So, and when it comes to body, the physical body, this has been my biggest piece, is that I learned how to use my voice through my body. Yeah. It wasn't just this concept that came in that went, okay, Tracey, you have to use your voice. You have to use it authentically. And I'm not against circles and workshops. I'm all for them. I run them myself. But what I do want to say is, a lot of times it's a concept that is trying to be delivered to someone to go, hey, this is how we use the voice. But often it bypasses the body. So I call this, my body showed me how to use my voice. I didn't show my voice how to listen to my body, if that makes sense. It was the reverse. My body went, oh, through that moment where I was getting, the touch was deep and, spiky. I was like, oh, I want to say I don't like that, but maybe the practitioner needs to do that because I need to get to this next stage. And I went, no, get out of the head. I said, oh, I don't like that. She's like, wonderful. And she stopped. So at that moment, my body led the voice. And I think that's the important piece. Yeah.
It's really interesting because that also comes to play with having a safe space, right? Especially when we're trying to open up that part of us. I know you've mentioned having that space within the practitioner where you felt heard and seen, and it was reflected back. But again, having a partner who can understand that is equally important. But then I'd like to tie that back into things like boundaries and worthiness, and how all of that impacts on our ability to use our voice, but also to feel connected.
Yeah. I think boundaries are a really important one, and an exercise I often do with my clients is to give them an experience of having their boundary crossed in a very safe, it's not the first thing I do with a client, but it's like, so they know what it feels like in their body. Because we can write lists of boundaries. These are my boundaries. But again, it's a concept. So what does it feel like for me when my boundaries are crossed? And then we go, that wasn't even, if I did have a list, that wasn't even on my list. And here we are in this moment. We're walking around with this incredible body that is filled with so much wisdom. Each and every day I have the privilege of hearing such incredible wisdom come from my clients' bodies through words. And it's not a concept that I have given them to embody. It's like, oh, just do this and your anxiety will go, or your intimacy issues will go, or whatever it is we're working on. It comes from them. And yeah, I think coming back to boundaries, it's that body intelligence that will help us understand, and also the body intelligence that will help us understand, you know, worthiness as well. So if we're searching for a sense of worthiness out there, we're always going to be disappointed, right? But if we start to listen to our body, and our body is our source of worthiness, and there's that reciprocal worthiness moving between my mind and my body, then, you know, we can attune more to the information that's coming from the body. And we can, not that worthiness gives us more attunement, but if we're more attuned to the body, like you think of a radio, when you're just off the frequency, if you tune it in a little bit, if we start to tune in more, we can move through the world with a sense of worthiness that is as unique to us as we are to the world. Because what worthiness means and feels like for you, Shraddha, will be completely different to what it means and feels like for me. So this idea that a word might, like if I just embrace worthiness, it's like, yeah, you can only say a mantra so many times and your body might have a different experience of that. So I'm a fan. Sorry.
I was going to say, and that also changes over time, right? You experience different things, and it's like, you know, people saying, "Oh, that's your personality, and that's going to stay, and that's not never going to change." But that's, your personality is made through experiences, and when you have different experiences,
Absolutely.
it all changes, right?
100%. And if we allow, and again, I'll come back to that day where I had that beautiful experience that didn't feel so beautiful at the time, but that day I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, that day I changed my story. That I was a child that had experienced boundary ruptures with a trusted adult. And I no longer held that as a reason. I laid it down that day and let my body show me how to heal, because what was happening, if we think of, you know, from the nervous system's perspective, what was happening is this, like, trauma is not what happened to me or you or anyone else in the world. It's the action I couldn't take at the time. Mm-hmm. So the action I couldn't take at the time was just churning around in my body as an incomplete cycle. So that day I started to complete that cycle. I started to, that doesn't feel good for my body. Oh, that feels good. Can you do more of that? And I started to meet the part of myself that I felt disconnected from and that felt fractured or broken or, you know, tainted. I could pull it closer and go, there is a relationship here. And I speak to that because, you know, as you said, when we change, we and this is where as a society we can feel fearful about tapping into our emotional parts, because we're like, oh gosh, if I touch that, then I'm going to be sad forever. But, you know, everything is moment to moment. Emotions is simply energy in motion. So if we allow them, and I know, you know, that sometimes if in the checkout at Coles or Woolies, it's like, oh, here it is, you know, it might not be appropriate according to society to process, but at least we can put that to the side and then work on it when we have the time. Not meaning, you know, 5 years later, if it comes, we need to honor it as soon as we can. But also in saying that, you know, we can work on absolutely reconnecting with those parts of us that we've been fractured from, regardless of how long ago they were. We just need to open the door and really sit beside them.
And we've talked quite a bit about, intimacy with a partner, and I'm wanting to explore the importance of self-pleasure and, how that impacts our ability to connect with somebody else, and, what that role is between the need to feel that initially and then to be able to explore that with someone else.
Yeah, beautiful. I feel self-pleasure is a really important part of expanding out your pleasure to somebody else, because in self-pleasure, there may be a desire like, oof, oh, I feel like following this sensation in my body or giving my body this experience of presence. And what can happen is the mind can come in and go, oh, no, family of origin or religious beliefs or all of the things. Can you stop that? However, if we move into self-pleasure, when we do, it's important because we get to know our bodies and what we like, knowing again that it's not final. It's not like, okay, I liked my breasts to be touched with self-intimacy, and then the next time I'm with a partner, my breasts are touched and it's like, oh, that doesn't feel good today. That we can change. There's a fluidity because here we are having a human experience, and we if we have expectations on, this is where I think that huge piece about consent, we need more of a conversation around that, because you may say yes, I'm ready for this, and then a minute later you might be like, oh no, I'm done. What does that mean? I think moment to moment consent needs to be considered. So yeah, we need to know our own bodies. First, we need to know our yes and know our no's from a sensory descriptive place before we can expect ourselves to, or have an expectation of ourselves to, because intimacy can be a lot about performing or looking a certain way. I think we really need to be attuned to our own bodies, yeses and nos, before we can expect ourselves to open up in that vulnerable space in truth. It is the most intimate of experiences. And yeah, if we know ourselves from a sensory perspective, then it's going to make our experiences with others, I want to say more pleasurable, but it might, it's going to make them more truthful. Yeah.
Yeah, more connection, I guess, like actually feeling that intimacy as opposed to just doing the deed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in intimacy, we have masculine energy and we have feminine energy, regardless of gender, regardless of our sexual preferences. There is always one partner who will be that masculine energy, and that masculine energy wants to serve. So it wants to know what is needed, what is desired. And so we share that with the masculine energy, and it's like, okay, done. I'm there for it. But there's this, oh, I don't want to offend them because they, I want them to think that they're doing it right. And, I think about, I'm just going to speak gender specific here, but many men in our culture, not just men, but women that might take more of a masculine role as well, have been taught about sex by the porn industry, and which is very performative. It looks a certain way. It's very like, get the job done. There's a destination. We have to get there. And, they teach women the feminine. about sex that they've learnt from porn. And I'm not saying women don't watch porn, but, you know, that's where this starts. And then what's left is these two people coming together, and where the expectations might be really high and the needs are not considered. And, you know, the man's or the masculine's like, finished, done, job done, let's lay and fall asleep. And the feminine energy is laying there going, I just faked that and that wasn't great, but I want to make them think it was great because I don't want to lose them. And there's this whole lot of psychology that comes into it and ego that comes into it. And I'm not saying they need to be separate, but we really need to be honest and truthful with our body's responses so we can get the most out of the experiences of our life.
What would you say to someone who has a bodily experience of wanting that intimacy, but the mind goes, no, not yet? Like, you know, just that disconnect between the body and mind.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Why does it happen? And how do we move through that?
Such a good question. From my experience, you know, having that body mind disconnect, there's this desire in the body for intimacy and the mind's going no. Quite often, you know, as the beautiful Michael Singer says, we are the sum of our learned experiences. The mind is the sum of our learned experiences. So we, you know, if we're aware of that, like, is there a disconnect? How can I support myself here? Let's just maybe see what happens. My body, I believe, my personal opinion is the body's intelligence is greater than the mind can even, like the body has answers to the questions that our mind can only think of. Yeah. So I believe it happens because of trauma, because of the past experiences of our lives, that we've formed a belief that keeps our ego safe, that keeps our ego accepted or worthy or loved or whatever it is we're limiting our authentic expression for. So I think, you know, if that's sitting there and someone's aware of that, I'd be seeking some support with a somatic therapist or, you know, with a psychologist or, you know, some cognitive behavioral therapy or something. That I think somatic therapy, and, you know, I'm not speaking here, I'm a passionate somatic therapist, but what I like about somatic therapy is it brings the body in, and the body gives the answers to the client, not the practitioner saying, here's the answer, off you go. So I think that could be helpful. And I think, you know, sitting with that disconnection, you know, if there's a desire in the body and there's the mind going, no, sit, I would say the solution, if there was a solution to that, would be to sit with that disconnect and see what that might bring you. See what sitting with the disconnect, because it's there for a reason. We don't want to bypass that disconnect. We want to pull it closer and see what it has to share with us. So that could be done with a somatic therapist. That would be my answer to that question.
And would you say, you know, if the body is wanting to go ahead, whereas the mind's not wanting to go ahead because it's formed these belief systems or there's fear or whatever it is, and I know you mentioned earlier that, you know, the body's got a higher intelligence and more wisdom, I guess. So if the body's bypassed that fear, are we then just holding on to that fear through our mind, as opposed to, you know, the body saying, I'm not ready? And so there is this real fear. I don't know if my question makes sense.
No, I hear you. And we can become identified with, like, we can let fear rule our lives, because the example is fear here. and go, no, 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 not doing it. The fear's too great. Not doing it, not doing it, not doing it, not doing it. And we don't have to do it. But my answer to that from my lived experience is pull that fear closer. What does it want? It's here because your body is so freaking smart, so intelligent, that it wants you to learn something from that. It wants to share something with you. And quite often we go, oh, no, I want all the good things and let's just get rid of the bad things. And so if we pull, what I've found in my experience, if I pull fear closer, hey, let it have a seat at the table, have a good look at it, notice my body as I look at it. I can find the information. I would be doing everyone that's listening to this a disservice if I said the solution to fear is to trust, right? What am I doing? I'm bypassing my client's experience and everybody out there's experience. So let's just pull fear closer. Because let's say there's 10 of us in a room and we all have fear around intimacy. Our body wants to, it's just got this opening and the mind's like, nope. If we all sat in the same room, even on the same Zoom, even separate from each other, we're all going to have some information that is unique to us that fear brings us. There's no blanket. There's no one way. So, I hope that does that sort of answer the question that you...
Yeah, it gives a little bit of, I guess, traction as to where you can go with that.
Yeah.
I want to touch on one more thing before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Body image and the feeling of feeling sensual, right? And I know that a lot of like the somatic work is sitting with that and actually, understanding what are the stories that you're telling yourself, or what is the body responding to. And I guess as women, we go through different cycles, and our body changes. And so managing that and managing the peak of our sensuality, what are some of the tools and tricks?
Such a big, important question. As women, we want to hold on to beauty, and what is the idea of beauty, really? Society has us believe it's something. And if we're not that, then we're not beautiful. I feel that, again, coming back to noticing how I judge, noticing what parts of myself I judge, and seeing how I respond to that. How much does my, this body that I have, which is my opportunity to have a sensual experience. Because of this body, I can smell, I can taste, I can see, I can hear, I can feel. And so I think it's coming back to that appreciation that we only have this one body. And again, this is a concept, right? Like, it's like, here's the concept. It's not like you need to do this and you'll be fine, body image stuff gone. But I think noticing what's real, noticing how we judge ourselves. And one of the big experiences for me that I do incorporate into a lot of my women's like retreats and things like that is undressing in front of a group of women. For me, and again, I speak through my lens of experience in life, for me, that was a turning point when I had that opportunity. It was terrifying because I had so many body image issues. I didn't like my arms. I didn't like my belly. I've had 3 cesareans. I didn't like how that looked. I didn't like that I'm a voluptuous woman. And it was very, very well honoured and respected, and very clear boundaries, which I think is really important when we're doing such vulnerable work like that. but to share what I didn't love about myself, and no one wanted to fix it. No one said, no, don't be silly, that's beautiful, was one of the biggest moments for me in body acceptance, because I was no longer hiding. Shame grows when it's hidden, right? I was no longer hiding what I didn't love, and I was accepted and told how beautiful I was. And yeah, that was a big turning point. So I think fear can keep us in that body image, like, oh, I don't want to share that. I'm not saying go out and share your body story with everyone, you'll be fine. But if you ever have the opportunity to be witnessed with a close friend or a lover or someone that can really hold you and witness you, it can really be a gift. So I think that's a big piece. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, but what I will say is that the stories we tell ourselves about our bodies become the way we show up in the world. And so we can just look at, how am I showing up? Do I want to continue showing up this way? And what is my body asking of me? Alongside, not dismissing the stories, because they're important to give us information, but what does my body want me to know? What does it need from me? Coming back to that wisdom, because I was born with these thumbs that are like quite in the homeopathic world. They call them I can't even remember. There's a remedy that says that's a family history of tuberculosis. So I have these big thumbs, and they have been a real a place for me to learn to love myself, because I can't change them. I've thought about all the ways I could, but I can't. And I'm like, hey, here they are, and they're part of me, and all the parts of me get to be present as I share myself with the world, because I know how exhausting it is when I try and hide a part of me that I wish looked better, or I wished expressed better, or I wish showed up better. I'm sort of, subtracting from my wholeness. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I have so many more questions, but I'm mindful of time. I want to finish up with 3 questions that I ask my guest speakers. First one being, how would you like to see the future of holistic health and well-being? But in this case, I'm actually going to narrow it down even more, and talk about sexual health.
Oh, what a deep, beautiful question, Shraddha. I would love to see the future of sexual health, and I'm moved as I say this, that schools, the education system, teaches women, men, gender fluid folks of their body and its sensations, so they can use that in all of the experiences in their life. I would love, if that was to happen in this world, imagine what a different place it would be if we were connected to our bodies and knew how to read and understand its language. Then sexual health would just be, the ripple effect would be huge.
I completely agree with you. In occupational therapy, we talk about sensory modulation and interoception as a concept, and it's often not used on a regular basis. Only used to or with someone who's dysregulated. But if we could actually teach that to everybody, we could be so much more connected with what's really going on and adapt. So I love that. Second question being, what is your favorite occupation? Occupation being any activity.
My favorite occupation. Oh, do I have to just say one?
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, dear me. I would say it has to be nature.
Yeah.
Nature to me reminds me of my nature, reminds me of my beauty, my differences, my faults, and how I'm ever changing.
Beautiful. Last one being, what are 3 resources you can recommend for someone who's starting out this journey into sensuality and wanting to, I guess, get deeper into becoming more intimate with themselves and then with their partner?
Oh, wow. 3 resources. Books come to my mind. I feel that Tammy Lynn Kent is a phenomenal woman. She specializes in women's pelvic health. She's who I've studied with, and she's got some great resources: Wild Feminine, Wild Creative, and Mothering from Your Center. Highly recommend her work. Very gentle, easy. Her books are filled with processes that you can do. Somatic therapy, if you can do that I'm not saying everyone needs a somatic therapist, but I'm sure your beautiful audience will know what feels right for them. But somatic therapy can be a really nice tool to connect you back with body. Some people offer group sessions, and there's also one-on-one sessions, but I'd be definitely recommending that. And another resource is nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to say nature as a resource, to just sit and contemplate yourself and give yourself time to integrate life, to contemplate life, and to show you how things are always changing, how there's hurricanes and there's peace, then there's, the seasons changing and things growing and dying and being reborn. And I think nature is a really important resource.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracey. If people want to find out a little bit more about you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Glorious You Project on Instagram, or I have a website, Instagram and Facebook, Glorious You Project.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shraddha. What a pleasure.
Well, this is where your journey of exploration continues. Please subscribe to the Lifeability podcast so that you can stay tuned when new episodes come online. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. The mission at Lifeability is to inspire you to create a more fulfilling life for yourself and improve your quality of life. So why not share this podcast with your loved ones and create a ripple effect together? Until next time, Asante Sana.